Imagine the narrow cobblestone streets of Strasbourg on a blistering hot day in mid-July 1518. The air hangs heavy with the smell of sweat, fear, and unwashed bodies. A woman steps out from her half-timbered house. Chronicles name her Frau Troffea. She begins to dance, not a joyful village dance or courtly step, but a wild, compulsive, unstoppable frenzy. Her feet pound the stones, her arms flail, her face twists in a grimace that looks far more like pain than pleasure. Hours pass. She collapses from exhaustion, her feet bloody and swollen. But after only a brief rest, she rises again and dances on. By the next day, others have joined her. Within a week, more than 30 people are locked in the same terrifying ritual. By the end of the month, the number swells toward 400. Men, women, children, rich and poor alike, dancing day and night in the public squares and guildhalls of this prosperous free city in the Holy Roman Empire. Some collapse and never rise again. Accounts speak of heart failure, strokes, and sheer physical collapse under the relentless summer sun. The town that danced itself to death. This is not a fairy tale spun centuries later. This is what the Strasbourg records, document about a plague that no one then, and no one fully now, can completely explain. The event is firmly anchored in historical fact. It occurred in Strasbourg, a prosperous free imperial city in the Alsace region of the Holy Roman Empire, now part of modern France. The outbreak began on or around July 14, 1518. Multiple independent chronicles, including the Imlin family chronicle and records connected to city officials, identify Frau Troffea as the first victim. She danced compulsively for 4 to 6 days. The Strasbourg City Council became actively involved. Their records, along with physician notes and contemporary chronicles, form the primary evidence. Physicians diagnosed overheated blood affecting the brain. The council, acting on this advice, decided the afflicted should dance to cure themselves. They cleared guildhalls, hired musicians, and organized spaces for the dancing. This intervention, documented in municipal orders, instead helped the mania spread. Estimates place the number of dancers between 50 and 400. The episode lasted from mid-July to late August or early September 1518. Many afflicted individuals were sent to the shrine of Saint Vitus in Saverne, roughly 30 miles away, for religious rituals including holy water, red shoes, and prayers. Chroniclers note that this pilgrimage approach coincided with the outbreak's end. Sebastian Brandt, author of The Ship of Fools and a city official, was connected to the events through council records. Later compilers like Daniel Specklin drew directly from these archives. Paracelsus referenced the case in his writings years afterward. These sources confirm the dancing occurred, the council responded with music and pilgrimage, and the event eventually subsided. To fully understand this mystery, we must set the scene in Strasbourg in 1518. The city had a population of around 20,000 to 25,000. It was a commercial hub with strong guilds and a prominent cathedral. However, the early 16th century was a period of hardship. Poor harvests due to the beginning of the Little Ice Age led to food shortages and famine. Diseases such as smallpox and syphilis were widespread. Religious anxiety was high as ideas of reform spread. In this environment, belief in saints like Saint Vitus was strong. The saint was seen as both a potential causer and curer of dancing mania. Moralists like Sebastian Brandt criticized excessive dancing as sinful. Daily life mixed commerce, religion, and community rituals, but underlying stress created conditions where a strange affliction could take hold. The mystery emerged quickly. On July 14th, Frau Troffea began dancing in the street without music. She continued despite exhaustion and pleas from her husband. Soon others joined. The compulsion spread rapidly across social classes. People danced with pained expressions, ignoring injuries and fatigue. Within days, the streets filled with dancers. The city council consulted doctors and chose to facilitate dancing in guildhalls with hired musicians. This made the situation worse as the public display encouraged more people to join. Panic spread. Was this a curse from Saint Vitus? Demonic influence? A new disease? The speed and scale turned a single case into a citywide crisis. The evidence from Strasbourg records is substantial for a 16th century event. Municipal archives contain council orders, directing musicians and spaces for dancers. Chronicles describe the start with Frau Troffea, the spread, and the response. The Imlin family chronicle dates it precisely. Specklin's compilation uses lost manuscripts from the time. Physicians' observations point to overheated blood. Later the council banned music and sent victims to Severn. Many returned cured. Death tolls are disputed. Some later accounts mention 15 deaths per day, but contemporary city records do not specify exact numbers. Historians note the physical toll was real, even if precise fatalities remain uncertain. The dancing, the official actions, and the resolution are well attested. The bigger picture shows this was not unique. Earlier dancing manias occurred in Europe, such as in 1374. The 1518 case is the most thoroughly documented. It happened amid famine, disease, and religious tension. These stressors likely played a role. Modern theories include mass psychogenic illness, where extreme stress leads to shared symptoms, or ergot poisoning from contaminated rye causing convulsions. Each has supporting points but also limitations. The records do not allow a single definitive cause. What we do not know includes the exact mechanism. Why did it start with one woman? Why did it spread so fast? The precise death toll is uncertain due to varying accounts. How exactly the pilgrimage ended, it remains open to interpretation. These honest gaps make the event compelling. The Strasbourg records give facts but leave room for questions. Voices from the time distinguish documented records from later legends. Contemporary sources focus on the dancing, council actions, and pilgrimage. Later traditions sometimes embellish details. Clear separation shows the core event is factual. The emotional core is the human suffering. Families watched loved ones dance until collapse. Bodies failed under strain. Fear gripped the community. Civic leaders desperately sought solutions. This was real terror and desperation in 1518 Strasbourg. Where this leaves us is with respect for historical mystery. The event shows the power of belief and stress on groups. It parallels modern phenomena of mass psychogenic illness. The Strasbourg records remind us how much we can know, and how much remains unknown. The hot summer of 1518 saw the city struggle with an inexplicable affliction. Frau Troffea's dance triggered a chain reaction. Council records show pragmatic but ultimately counterproductive measures with music. The shift to religious pilgrimage at the St. Vitus shrine helped restore order. The archives preserve these decisions. They show a community confronting the unknown with the tools of their era: medicine, governance, and faith. Expanding on the setting, Strasbourg's economy relied on trade and guilds. The cathedral was a center of religious life. Famine had weakened many residents. Malnutrition made people more susceptible to strange symptoms. Syphilis outbreaks added to physical and mental strain. In such conditions, a single case of compulsive movement could trigger widespread imitation through suggestion and fear. The belief in St. Vitus provided a cultural framework that shaped how people interpreted and responded to the dancing. As more people joined, the scene in the streets became chaotic. Dancers moved for hours without rest. Some had swollen, bleeding feet. Others collapsed in the heat, only to rise again. Musicians played on orders from the council, their tunes filling the air and encouraging the motion. Guildhalls became temporary dance halls, where the afflicted were brought. This organized response, meant to cure, instead created an environment where the mania could flourish and spread to new victims. The council's records document these steps, showing their genuine attempt to solve the crisis based on medical advice of the time. Physicians trained in humoral theory saw the dancing as an imbalance of hot blood rising to the brain. Their recommendation aligned with the idea that the body needed to expel the excess through continued movement. Today this seems misguided, but in 1518 it was cutting-edge thinking. The council, responsible for public order, followed it. When it worsened the problem, they adapted by restricting music and turning to religious solutions. This flexibility is evident in the surviving orders. Chroniclers like those in the Imlin family and Specklin provide narrative details. They describe the rapid increase in numbers. They note the fear among citizens. Some accounts mention priests praying for deliverance. The connection to St. Vitus was strong, because the saint was already associated with similar symptoms. Sending victims to the shrine in Severn was a logical step in that worldview. The journey itself, with rituals performed, seems to have broken the cycle for many. The emotional toll cannot be overstated. Parents saw children dancing uncontrollably. Spouses watched husbands or wives ignore food and rest. The community shared a sense of dread that the curse could strike anyone. This fear itself likely contributed to the spread. In times of uncertainty, such social dynamics amplify unusual behaviors. The records, while official, convey the seriousness with which authorities treated the situation. Comparing to other outbreaks adds context. The 1374 dancing mania in Aachen and other regions showed similar patterns. Stress from plague, famine, or social upheaval often preceded these events. The 1518 case stands out for its detailed documentation thanks to Strasbourg's efficient record-keeping. Sebastian Brandt's presence and writings provide additional contemporary perspective, even if he did not write a full account himself. Uncertainty remains around several points. The exact identity details of Frau Troffea, beyond her name, are limited. The total number of dancers varies in sources from lower to higher estimates. Whether deaths reached the dramatic levels in some chronicles is debated because immediate city records are quieter on fatalities. These open questions are acknowledged honestly. They do not undermine the reality of the event, but highlight the limits of historical evidence. The traditions around the plague mix documented fact with later storytelling. Primary records focus on actions taken. Later folk accounts may add moral lessons or supernatural emphasis. Distinguishing them keeps the history accurate. The Strasbourg archives and near-contemporary chronicles are the foundation. This event touches the emotional core of human vulnerability. In the face of something inexplicable, people turn to authority, medicine, and faith. The suffering was physical and psychological. The desperation of families and leaders is palpable across the centuries. It reminds us that history is made by real people in real distress. Today, the dancing plague leaves us reflecting on the boundaries of knowledge. It shows how mass behavior can emerge under stress. Parallels exist in modern cases of collective symptoms without clear organic cause. The Strasbourg records offer a valuable case study. They demonstrate both the ingenuity and the limitations of 16th-century responses. The summer heat intensified everything. Dancers moved under the sun, risking heat stroke and exhaustion. The music echoed through the city. The pilgrimage process gradually reduced the numbers. By early September, normal life resumed. The city healed, but the memory endured in written records. Further details from the period show the council balancing multiple concerns. They needed to stop the disruption to trade and daily order while addressing the affliction. Their evolving strategy from facilitation to restriction to pilgrimage reflects practical governance. The physician notes reinforce the medical thinking of the era. Together, these sources create a coherent picture. The plague's end came not with a single dramatic moment, but through sustained efforts and time. The power of shared belief in the St. Vitus cure likely played a psychological role in recovery. This interplay of mind and culture is one reason the event fascinates historians. In conclusion of this section, the Strasbourg dancing plague of 1518 is a true historical event, backed by city records, chronicles, and medical observations. It began with Frau Troffea on July 14th. It spread through social and environmental factors. Officials responded according to their understanding. The mystery of its exact cause persists, inviting ongoing study. The human stories behind the documents make it one of history's most compelling mysteries. To reach deeper into the evidence, consider how the guildhalls were repurposed. These centers of craft and commerce became holding places for the afflicted. Musicians were paid from city funds. This financial commitment shows the priority given to resolving the crisis. Council minutes, though fragmentary, indicate emergency meetings. The decision-making process was deliberate. Descriptions in chronicles paint vivid pictures. Dancers with contorted faces, moving until they dropped. Some accounts note foaming at the mouth or cries of distress. These details, while disturbing, are part of the documented record. They underscore the severity. The role of religion was central. Prayers, processions, and the pilgrimage reflect the era's worldview. St. Vitus was seen as capable of both inflicting and relieving the dance. The red shoes and holy water were specific ritual elements intended to appease or exorcise the influence. Social dynamics amplified the outbreak. In a close-knit city, seeing neighbors dance created suggestion and fear. Those already stressed by hunger or illness were more susceptible. This aligns with modern understanding of mass psychogenic illness, where symptoms spread through observation and shared anxiety. Ergot theory points to contaminated rye bread, common in the diet. Ergot fungus can cause convulsions and hallucinations. Weather conditions in preceding years could have favored fungal growth. However, not all symptoms perfectly match, and not everyone eating the same food was affected equally. This theory remains plausible but not conclusive. The psychogenic explanation emphasizes the role of stress. Famine, disease, social change, and religious fears created a perfect storm. The initial case provided a model that others unconsciously followed. The council's music intervention reinforced the behavior. This view accounts for the rapid spread and resolution through changed environment and belief. Both theories have merit. The records do not resolve the debate. They simply document what happened and how people responded. This honesty about uncertainty is key to accurate history. The emotional stories include families bringing relatives to guildhalls, hoping the prescribed dance would cure them. Children caught up in the mania, elderly struggling to keep moving, the collective fear that the plague marked divine displeasure or impending doom. Where the event leaves us is with appreciation for the complexity of the past. We have more tools today, but similar vulnerabilities to stress and suggestion. The 1518 plague is a mirror for understanding human behavior in crisis. The Strasbourg records are a treasure. They allow us to reconstruct the timeline, the actions, and the cultural context. Frau Troffea's dance started it. The council tried to manage it. The pilgrimage ended it. The why remains partly open. This is the true history. Continuing the detailed account, the summer days blurred into a continuous scene of motion. The heat exacerbated the physical danger. Dehydration and exhaustion claimed strength. Yet the compulsion drove many onward. The musicians' tunes, initially therapeutic, became part of the problem. Banning them later was a necessary correction. Pilgrims to Saverne carried hopes of the community. Their return cured, provided relief and a sense of resolution. The city slowly normalized. Trade resumed. Life continued. But the chronicles preserve the story for future generations. This 1518 event is the most documented dancing mania. Its details allow deep study. It stands as a landmark in the history of psychology, medicine, and culture. The people of Strasbourg faced something extraordinary. Their records let us witness it. The people of Strasbourg faced something extraordinary with the dancing plague. Their records let us witness it across the centuries with remarkable clarity. The municipal archives preserve the council's urgent meetings and orders. Physicians' notes detail the symptoms observed in the victims. Chroniclers provide the human dimension, describing the fear that gripped families and neighbors as the dancing spread from one person to dozens, and then hundreds. This was not mass delusion invented by later writers. It was a documented crisis handled by real officials, using the knowledge and beliefs available in 1518. As the outbreak intensified in late July, the city's leaders found themselves in an impossible position. Trade was disrupted. Public spaces were overtaken by the dancers. The sight of men, women, and children moving uncontrollably created widespread anxiety that the affliction could strike anyone at any moment. The decision to hire musicians and open guildhalls, while logical within the medical framework of the time, turned the streets and halls into a surreal spectacle. Drums and pipes played continuously. The rhythm seemed to pull more people into the compulsion. Contemporary descriptions note the pained expressions on dancers' faces, the sweat-soaked clothing, and the constant motion that ignored basic needs like food, water, and sleep. The council eventually recognized the error. Records show a shift in policy. Public music was restricted. Dancing outside designated areas was banned. This change aimed to reduce the contagious effect of the public displays. At the same time, religious authorities emphasized the connection to Saint Vitus. The saint's shrine in Saverne became the focal point for treatment. Victims were placed in wagons, provided with symbolic red shoes, sprinkled with holy water, and sent on the journey accompanied by prayers. Many accounts state that upon completing the rituals at the shrine, the compulsion left them. As more people returned cured, the number of active dancers in Strasbourg decreased. By early September, the mania had largely subsided, and the city began the slow process of returning to ordinary life. This resolution through pilgrimage highlights the powerful role of belief in the pre-modern world. What modern observers might call the placebo effect, or the breaking of a psychological cycle, was, to the people of 1518, divine intervention by Saint Vitus. The integration of medical advice and religious practice was typical of the era. The Strasbourg records show pragmatism rather than panic. Officials tried one approach, evaluated its results, and adapted. This flexibility likely helped contain what could have been an even longer crisis. The bigger picture places the 1518 event within a series of dancing manias reported across Europe from the 14th to 16th centuries. The 1374 outbreak in Aachen and other regions shared similarities: compulsive dancing, social stress, and eventual subsidence. These episodes often followed periods of hardship such as plague, famine, or war. In Strasbourg, the combination of recent poor harvests, disease outbreaks, and religious ferment created fertile ground. The Reformation was on the horizon, adding to a sense of cosmic uncertainty. People sought explanations in the supernatural because natural causes were not fully understood. Historians like John Waller have argued convincingly for mass psychogenic illness as the primary explanation. In this view, extreme societal stress manifests in shared physical symptoms that follow cultural expectations. The local belief in St. Vitus's dance curse provided the template. Once Frau Troffea exhibited the behavior, others unconsciously replicated it under the pressure of fear and suggestion. The council's initial response with music reinforced the pattern. When the environment changed, restrictions on public dancing and the pilgrimage option, the cycle broke. This interpretation fits the evidence without requiring supernatural elements. Alternative theories deserve consideration. Ergotism, caused by the fungus Claviceps purpurea on rye, produces convulsions, hallucinations, and burning sensations in the extremities. Rye was a dietary staple, and wet conditions in prior years could have increased contamination. Some symptoms align, but the highly selective social spread and the resolution through pilgrimage are harder to explain purely through toxicology. A combination of factors, contaminated food lowering resistance, plus psychological contagion, remains possible. The records themselves do not mention bread or poisoning, focusing instead on the observed behavior and attempted cures. What we do not know honestly includes several key details. The precise number of deaths is disputed. While some later chronicles claim 15 victims per day at the peak, immediate Strasbourg city sources are quieter on exact fatalities. Physical collapse undoubtedly caused harm, but the scale is uncertain. We lack detailed medical descriptions of individual cases beyond general observations. The exact identity and background of Frau Troffea remain limited to her name and the fact she was the first recorded case. Why the outbreak stopped so definitively in September is unclear. Coincidence with changing weather, exhaustion of susceptible individuals, or the success of the pilgrimage in restoring collective confidence. These open questions do not weaken the historical reality. They illustrate the challenges of reconstructing events from 5 centuries ago. Surviving documents are invaluable but incomplete. No single source gives the full picture. Instead, we piece together council orders, physician notes, sermons, and chronicles. This process reveals a community responding rationally within its worldview. Voices and traditions must be clearly distinguished. Documented records from 1518 and the immediate decades afterward form the core. The Strasbourg Municipal Archives, Imlin Family Chronicle, Specklin's compilations, and references by Paracelsus provide the factual backbone. Later folk traditions and moralistic retellings sometimes add dramatic flourishes or lessons about sin and divine punishment. Sebastian Brandt's earlier writings on the folly of dance influenced how some interpreted the event, but his direct involvement is through the administrative records rather than a dedicated narrative. Keeping legends separate from the documented actions of the council and the observed dancing maintains accuracy. The emotional core of the story lies in the profound human suffering. Imagine a husband watching his wife dance until her feet bled, unable to stop her. Parents seeing children caught in the frenzy, their small bodies pushed beyond limits. neighbors fearing they would be next. The entire city lived under a cloud of dread, mixed with compassion and confusion. Civic leaders carried the burden of decision-making, knowing their choices affected thousands. The desperation that led to hiring musicians, then restricting them, then organizing pilgrimages, reflects deep care for the community, alongside practical governance. This was not abstract history. It was families torn apart, bodies broken, and a society confronting forces beyond their control. The dancers themselves endured physical agony. Many continued despite injuries, dehydration, and exhaustion. The compulsion overrode normal instincts for self-preservation. This aspect makes the event particularly harrowing. The psychological toll on survivors and witnesses must have been significant. The return to normalcy after September would have been relief mixed with lingering trauma and questions about what had happened. Where this leaves us is with a deeper appreciation for the limits of historical knowledge and the enduring power of collective human behavior. The 1518 dancing plague demonstrates how stress, belief, and social dynamics can produce phenomena that defy easy explanation. It offers parallels to modern instances of mass psychogenic illness, such as outbreaks of unexplained symptoms in schools or communities under pressure. Science has advanced, but the human mind and body remain susceptible to similar influences. The Strasbourg records serve as a valuable case study. They show 16th-century people applying the best available medicine, governance, and religion to an unprecedented crisis. Their efforts ultimately succeeded in restoring order. The event also warns against oversimplification. Easy answers like mass hysteria or poisoning capture parts of the truth but rarely the whole. Honest scholarship acknowledges the gaps. This mystery continues to fascinate because it touches fundamental questions about free will, the power of suggestion, and the boundary between mind and body. Frau Troffea's dance on that July day in 1518 set off a chain reaction that revealed the vulnerabilities of an entire society. The city survived and documented the experience, leaving us a legacy of questions that enrich our understanding of the past. Further reflection on the context reveals the interconnectedness of events. The same year saw Luther's challenge to the Church, signaling massive religious upheaval. Strasbourg itself would become a center of Protestant activity shortly afterward. The dancing plague may have been one manifestation of broader anxieties about sin, punishment, and divine order. In such times, unusual events carried heightened meaning. The role of music is particularly interesting. Rhythm and sound have powerful effects on the human nervous system. The council's initial use of musicians may have entrained more people into the dancing through auditory and visual cues. Later restrictions on music likely helped break that entrainment. This insight aligns with modern understandings of how external stimuli can influence behavior in susceptible individuals. Pilgrimage as treatment combined physical removal from the stressful environment with powerful symbolic healing, leaving the city, traveling, participating in rituals, and returning with a sense of absolution provided psychological reset. The success reported in chronicles suggests this approach addressed both the symptoms and the underlying fears. Studying the dancing plague encourages humility. Despite centuries of analysis, we cannot declare a single cause with absolute certainty. The surviving evidence supports the occurrence, but leaves mechanisms open. This is the nature of much historical inquiry, piecing together fragments into the most coherent picture possible while remaining transparent about uncertainties. The human stories endure. The unnamed dancers who suffered, the officials who made difficult decisions, the families who prayed for deliverance. Their experiences, preserved in the Strasbourg records, connect us to the past in a direct and moving way. The plague nobody can fully explain continues to dance through history, reminding each generation of the mysteries inherent in human experience. As the summer of 1518 faded into autumn, Strasbourg gradually healed. The guildhalls returned to their normal functions. Markets filled again with commerce rather than dancers. The cathedral bells rang for regular services instead of emergency prayers. Life moved forward, but the memory of the dancing days remained etched in local chronicles and collective awareness. Future generations would recount the story with varying degrees of embellishment, yet the core documented facts stayed consistent. This concludes the primary examination of the event based on the available records. The dancing plague stands as a testament to the resilience of the human community in the face of the inexplicable. It challenges us to approach the past with both rigor and empathy. Rigor in evaluating sources, empathy for those who lived through events we can scarcely imagine. The town that danced itself to death in 1518 did not perish. It endured, documented its ordeal, and left us one of history's most intriguing mysteries. What the Strasbourg records say is clear on the facts of the outbreak and response. What they leave open continues to invite curiosity and study more than 500 years later.